listening to Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth on AFR Talk.
Welcome back. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth. Hey, I'm not down. I'm just exposing the difference between what President Obama says and what the truth is. And there is a great gap between the two. A lot of room between the two. And a difference. They're not congruent. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth. We now move to a great part of the show because we have Dan, the man, Celia, financial issues right here on AFR Talk. And Dan occasionally makes time for us, and we do appreciate it. Dan, great to be with you.
Crane, great to be with you. Glad to be here. It's been a while. It's been a long time.
It
What,
always is.
You've probably been on vacation for like 2 months, right? You have been on the air, I'm sure.
Boy.
I know.
You get
tried.
me going on that.
No,
See?
I know. You've tried, though. You have tried to catch up with me. I've been crazy, and
well,
I know you are, too. But
I know, Dan, but I got to tell you something. Nobody will ever question your work ethic, and we see the fruits of it on a daily and hear the fruits of it daily here on AFR Talk, and it's great because it's the idea of a Yugo versus a Lexus, you know? You're going to go in and people say, okay, if somebody just gets by, that's not a lot of people are attracted to that. They're attracted to the fact that when people use their godly gifts and maximize them. And to do that, we've got to be free. Because I know you were wondering, where are you going with this, Crane?
I was, but I was just, you noticed how quiet I was.
Yes, exactly. That's good. So the bottom line is you raised the standard, you raised the bar, and that's what we need. And that's what America's all about, being able to do that. Yet the president, in an idea of compassion, often talks about how the government can help us, and if you just work hard, you should succeed. Well, here's the president. Roll it.
I want to be honest with you. No program or policy is going to solve all the problems in a multi-trillion-dollar housing market. The housing bubble went up so high, the heights it reached before it burst were so unsustainable that we knew it was going to take some time for us to fully recover. But if we take the steps that I talked about today, then I know we will restore not just our home values, but also our common values. We'll make owning a home a symbol of responsibility, not speculation.
Not speculation. Now, Dan, a symbol of responsibility would be 10 to 20% down, arguably even more. And yet we have a government wanting to come in and help, always help. They want to help the economy. Other than lowering taxes and simplifying the code, and lowering regulations or the amount of and the cost of, when it comes to what you have described as QE forever, and you were the first to do that, talking about the monetary easing policy, tell me something. What does that do? Because it's a huge component of what we're going to be dealing with and have dealt with, and it's something that a lot of us just don't understand. Could you explain it to us?
Well, I guess, I'll explain it to you in the purpose of it.
Mm-hmm.
The purpose of it was and is to try to create some sort of wealth effect. It would be somewhat, now, I would say that it's maybe beginning to work in the sense, when I say wealth effect, I'm not talking about a wealth effect in Wall Street. I'm talking about a wealth effect among consumers. So, in other words, there's a psychological impact or effect. If your IRA is going up and your 401k is going up, your investments are going up, your savings is going up, there is a psychological impact on that called the wealth effect, which makes you feel like you have more money and you begin to feel good about the economy. The idea there is that you will spend money. Now, I'm free to spend money because I feel good because everything's doing great. And it has, by the way, worked in past recessions. It has not worked in this recession. So the idea is, because we're a consumer-driven nation, that if we create a wealth effect and people start spending money, then the economy will start to take off because people are spending money. And the quantitative easing will be kind of irrelevant because GDP growth is going to grow and start taking over the economy, thereby allowing an exit of QE. So that's what's supposed to happen. I believe that's what Ben Bernanke thought was going to happen with QE1. It didn't, so he tried 2. It didn't, so he tried 3, and now we've got 4 ever. And, it is, so I think that's what exactly what's happened. QE3, by the way, wasn't technically QE3. It was a bond buying program that they didn't call QE3, but it was, in fact, more quantitative easing. So, that's what he tried to make happen. Now, all that did was throw cheap money at the market into corporations. Corporations began to worry and be concerned, not necessarily be concerned, but take advantage of it and focus more on their balance sheet as opposed to growing their business. And they've done a very good job of that, corporations. Their balance sheets are probably stronger than they've ever been as a result of getting a hold of cheap money, buying back their own stock, driving the price of their stock up, and taking, when you buy back your own stock, you're taking that stock off the market. So now you've got fewer shares that people now want because it went up, and that creates a little bit of a value. But more importantly, it adds to the bottom line. So they've shorted up in an artificial. This is a false positive, in my opinion, that we have in the market. Now, have companies gotten better? Yes. Companies are fundamentally stronger, in my opinion, today than they certainly were in 2008, 9, and 10. So they are stronger. There's no doubt about it. But the fundamentals of the economy, the real fundamentals of the economy, are, in fact, beginning in the last 2 months, starting to get a little bit better in some areas, but a long way away from any kind of real recovery, in my opinion.
You talked about it working in past recessions. And
Yes.
And was it done in conjunction with other policies? And if so, what are the policies that are a part of this that may be hindering the recovery?
Well, the parts of it that are hindering the economy is there are no other parts. So there are no other, if you call more government interference, more regulation, a higher tax burden, a part of it, I guess you could. It's certainly some of the tax burden has contributed to the annual deficit decreasing a little bit. Certainly, we can say, well, between sequester and the added taxes, we're seeing the deficit this year coming down to maybe $850 billion or so, as opposed to $1.2 trillion. So it has helped, but that's a short-term help. It's a short-term effect. Next year is a whole nother story. So we'll be back in it again, in my opinion, next year. So, it hasn't been in, what they've done is it started with some help with $1 trillion stimulus for infrastructure shovel-ready projects that never happened. So that just got us deeper into debt. So the thing the government has to do now is get out of the way, get out of the business of trying to create markets and stimulate markets and be the market. They've got to get out of the way and let some free market economy get to work. But they're not going to do that.
And they're not going to do that. Businesses know that, so they're not hiring new folks unless they're part-time or temporary because of the health care bill, one of the many reasons. Yeah. The other thing is they become more efficient. They're making more money, yes. Yet this is creating what sounds like, as you mentioned, artificial, a bubble of sorts. Because is it a bubble?
Well, it's certainly, it is becoming a bubble. It's already been a bond bubble. There is a bond bubble. That's already, we're beginning to see some air being let out of that. And bond mutual funds being hurt right now. That is likely to escalate and be more of a bursting here in the next year and a half or so. So there is a bubble there. There is certainly a bubble in the stock market growing as well. And that too will correct at some point in time. So the government is not doing anything, in my opinion, constructive for long-term health of the economy. They're not doing anything. And you mentioned that, people aren't hiring companies. That is absolutely right. But one of the other reasons too, Crane, for not just the reasons that you mentioned, but there's no demand. You know, we keep leaving the demand factor out of everything. So it's like, well, banks aren't lending money. Nobody's asking for money. There's no demand for it. Small businesses say they don't have a problem getting credit. It's not an issue. The problem is there's no demand. There's no reason to expand. And that's been the biggest issue. So the government has to bring some certainty. Look, if you want to have
that word.
Certainty, if you want to have high taxes, just tell us what they are. We'll live with it. But we're scared to death that they're going to change. It's a moving target. Regulation is changing. It's a moving target. There is no governance going on. We've got a government that doesn't know what governing is. So we've got this total dysfunction in Washington among Republicans and Democrats alike, and we've got a president that seems to be okay with that. So there is no certainty, in my opinion, and I don't see that changing on the horizon. I do see, as I said, there are some fundamental things getting better, but if this is a recovery, it is like no other recovery that we've ever had in the history of this nation. It's
What
like
is the no other recovery in the history of this nation comparatively? It just doesn't look. Doesn't look like it. It's not getting there.
Well, here's the thing.
Yes.
We've never had a recovery, Crane, where the poverty rate went up. Never. We've never had a recovery where the median income of families has gone down. That has never happened. We've never had a recovery without robust growth, and we've never been this far into a so-called recovery and have more people unemployed today than at the beginning of the recession. That's never happened in the history of the nation. We've never had a recovery where food stamp participation went up, where disability benefit participation went up. We've never had, this is a recovery out of the twilight zone if it's a recovery.
Dan the Man Celia, and you just found out, if you didn't already know, why I call him Dan the Man Celia, because he's able to explain so much, and it's vital. And what's great about this is because everybody is in this area of uncertainty, so they have lots of questions, and you're able to walk us through these things on a daily basis. Financial issues. Tell me the central time it runs from.
Central time, 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock every day.
Thank you. Didn't want to get it wrong. All right. Dan, it is a pleasure and privilege. Thank you so much, man.
Great to be here. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
Back at you. Thank you. Dan Celia, Financial Issues, 8 to 10, Monday through Friday, Central. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth. More on the flip side, AFR Talk.
Kevin McCullough,
I may not hold every conspiracy theory that's out there,
AFA Today.
but I don't begrudge anybody that does hold them.
I feel like we need some form of a cultural awakening.
Okay, enough is enough.
All God asks of you is faithfulness.
Will we be faithful today?
Faithfulness is the word.
To tell the truth, to live the truth, to be the truth to those around us.
AFA Today, every weekday at noon Central on American Family Radio. AFR Talk.
Going back to school is tough on children and parents. On the next Focus on the Family, Cynthia Tobias joins us to help you create a new homework environment. It's custom fit to your own child's learning style. That's on the next Focus on the Family with Jim Daly.
AFR Talk presents Focus on the Family each weekday morning at 5 Central. Behold your God. Rethinking God biblically. Are we sure that the God we serve is the God described in Scripture? Is rethinking Him biblically really necessary? Behold Your God is a 12-week study for churches, small groups, families, or individuals containing 13 DVD sessions that are reinforced by a 12-week daily devotional workbook. Led by Dr. John Snyder, the study focuses on God's self-revelation in the Bible, helping the believer to apply the descriptions of God to all of life. Filmed at historical locations across Great Britain and the United States, this study also takes into consideration the voices of Charles Spurgeon, A.W. Tozer, George Mueller, and others. And thoughts from contemporary ministers, missionaries, and authors aid us in applying truths about God's character to our lives today. Find out more when you visit the website beholdyourgod.org. That's beholdyourgod.org.
News, pop culture, and the